Hi, my name is Connor Mead, and I'm here today at the 2017 Canadian Science Policy Conference. And joining me today is David Phipps, who's the Executive Director of Research and Innovation Services at York University. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Thank you, Connor. It's my pleasure.
All right, so to get us started off, I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about your role in knowledge mobilization at York? What makes your work important and what makes it unique?
Great, thank you. Knowledge mobilization at York is just one of our innovation services. So it's part of Innovation York, which is the office that traditionally does industry liaison, technology transfer and commercialization and entrepreneurship. But for 11 years, York has had a knowledge mobilization unit that works around that research partnering, but not around commercially oriented research, around research that could have an impact on public policy, social services, or professional practice. And so for years, for our founding documents, York has had a commitment to social justice. And that represents itself in the knowledge mobilization unit by connecting research that's not just in STEM, but it's in social sciences, humanities, environmental science, and health science as well. So it plays a unique role in our innovation landscape because we're not just commercialization for STEM, we're also knowledge mobilization for all the other disciplines that can have an impact for Canadians, but not be mediated through patents.
Fantastic. So I know York has received some great accolades for its success in this field. So I wonder if you could share what's the secret sauce? What are you doing that is so effective?
Great. I think there are three things that have gone into why this manifested at York. One is it's our program mix. Again, we're heavily weighted in the social sciences, humanities, health sciences, and in the environmental sciences, and we now have engineering. We opened up an engineering school 5 years ago, a health faculty 10 or 12 years ago. So we don't have a medical school, we don't have an agricultural school, so our program mix lends itself towards questions about public policy, about social issues and environmental issues. So that's number one. Number two is my background is in technology transfer and industry liaison. So I came to York from a space of building academic industry partnerships, and you land up at a social justice university and you say, well, there's so much bench strength of our research and our researchers and students, but we're not doing anything to liberate that, to enable that, to mobilize that. And then the third was our leadership. Our first vice president research under the Knowledge Mobilization Unit, or who oversaw the Knowledge Mobilization Unit, was Stan Shapson. He's an educational psychologist. His research was in the classroom, was helping kids have better learning outcomes. So he very much thought that research needed to get out of the university to make a difference to local and global citizens. And that's been supported by our current VP Research, Robert Hache, who has built on that legacy of Stan Shapson and just taken it more broadly, not just at York University, but throughout Canada with the Research Impact Canada network.
Great, so that's a very good segue into Research Impact Canada. I wonder, can you tell us a bit about about its mission, about its goals, and what the ideal future for it is?
Right, thank you. Research Impact Canada started as a partnership between York and the University of Victoria in 2006. And we came together to say we both have expertise and capacity in brokering relationships between our researchers and students and non-academic partners. How can we pair this up? And so we came together to start sharing those, and we worked really as a community of two, doing this type of work at Victoria and at York University. We had the idea that research at York should be able to benefit decision makers in Victoria. That was how we started. It turns out that we work better locally. But we started in doing that sharing, and along the way we were joined by other universities. We're now 14 Canadian universities and one university from the UK, the University of Brighton, all of whom are investing in different methods and mechanisms to create those bridges between science and society. And we all do it through very different mechanisms. Some of us are in the research portfolio, some of us are in community engagement, some of us, like at Kwantlen Polytechnic University, an undergraduate university, they work this through community service learning. So our goal is to act as a community of practice where we share these practices, share these tools, so that all of our capacity on all of our campuses can grow and we can create benefits not just to our local communities, but to communities across Canada.
Fantastic. So I know that it's a tremendous challenge to measure the impacts of research and innovation in the best of cases. So say when you're measuring impacts on business and publications and so on and so forth. I wonder if you could speak to some of the unique challenges of measuring impacts on policy outcomes, community outreach, and other research impacts related to social justice and some of your mandates in that regard.
It's a very complex field, and thank you for recognizing that. There is no single ROI, or return on investment, for research that is outside of the commercial realm. We've looked at a number of international systems for assessment of research impact, and the one that we learned a lot from was the Research Excellence Framework in the UK. It's a system-wide impact assessment method in the UK. It's not without its problems, and Research Impact Canada has looked at that, addressed some of those problems in our own tool to be able to assess the impacts of research. What we found in the UK is that there are many different pathways to create impacts, and this is why it's hard to assess them. Of 6,679 impact case studies in the UK REF, there are 3,709 unique ways to get to impact. So it's almost like no two ways of getting to impact are the same. So that absolutely belays the ability to create a single assessment metric. Because the impacts are so different, the inputs are so different, the stakeholders are so different. So the tool that we have developed, where we've adapted from the REF, comes from qualitative social science methodologies, where we have a standardized interview template that is derived from research in this space. And then when we've collected the evidence of impact through interviews, we then write a case study of impact, and we have a standard case study format that we can apply across settings. So we create a standardization of questions and a standardization of impact assessment outputs. And what we're doing right now is we've piloted that on one case, we're now looking at a second case, and we hope to be able to roll this out through the rest of the Research Impact Canada network.
Great, that's very interesting. I wonder, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's a burning question that I have right now. So when we're looking at all these different metrics related to different social outcomes, how do we approach the problem of comparative analysis and allocating resources across impacts that may not be immediately comparable to a first approximation?
Right. So what the UK did was they had the impact case studies were assessed by panels. There ended up being 36 units of assessment. So there was a group of health panels, engineering panels, social science panels, and humanities and arts panels. So that the economics panel was assessing its economics against other economics, not against chemistry. So it was done through a peer review, and importantly, peers were not just academic peers, but they also had peers from community, from industry, from government, and from individuals with lived experience. So the peers then ranked these comparative case studies against each other in their units of assessment. And based on that ranking, then the government in the UK apportioned funding, block grants, to the UK universities. So because the impacts are so different, there's no ability to say this impact is more important than this impact. What you need to do is be able to put the context around that, and to be able to contextualize it, you then need review panels to be able to assess those.
Fantastic. Well, so my last question before we wrap up, I wonder if you could share your feelings on the value of CSPC and what you're hoping to get out of the conference this year.
I'll talk about the value from the session that I am just in right now, which is Science Policy 101. And we started out with an exercise to say, what is science policy? Talk at your tables, draw a picture of science policy. And I asked the table, what is science policy? And there was a communicator from Vancouver who said, science policy is that interface between the science that happens and its use in policy making. That's knowledge mobilization. That's exactly what we say. So for me, I find like I found a different tribe, or the same tribe that uses different language, different words to say what we all do. So I think it's a really important opportunity for knowledge brokers, for knowledge mobilization practitioners, to be able to recognize there's a whole policy landscape that's doing the same stuff that we are, but might be using different words to describe it. So it's kind of like coming home, but the furniture might be arranged a little differently.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I wonder, for those who are watching at home, where could we go online to learn more about Research Impact Canada, more about York University Innovation Services, and the other topics we discussed today?
Excellent. You can look at Research Impact Canada by looking at www.researchimpact.ca, and for more on York University, to look at yorku.ca/research.
Fantastic. David, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure, Connor.